Sit down with GrowthCraft's expert advisors for a candid, interactive session focused on all things funding. From crafting smart fundraising strategies to making confident financial decisions, this open forum gives you the space to ask the tough questions, get real answers, and explore what's working in the world of startup capital. Whether you're bootstrapping or preparing for a raise, you'll walk away with insights you can apply immediately. Register to attend Funding Fridays at GrowthCraft by signing up for membership today at growthcraft.org/membership. Hello, my name is Hassan Sorrells. This is Tom Libby.
Welcome back, everyone.
And you are listening to the GrowthCraft podcast. The GrowthCraft podcast has been designed and is designed with the startup founder in mind. Our podcast is committed to growing your connections with our GrowthCraft advisors, increasing your engagement overall with the GrowthCraft community, and of course, growing your knowledge about all of the benefits GrowthCraft can provide. We can't wait to bring you along on our journey today. So here on our show, we focus on and we interview startup founders, advisors, and others about their journey, their process, their service, and of course, about how they are making a dent in the universe. And I'm happy to welcome to the show today our latest guest, Anushka Singh. How are you doing, Anushka?
Hi, I'm doing good today.
Awesome. Very good. So for those of us who are listening, those of us who are just joining us today, can you tell us what is it that you do exactly?
Yes. So I'm the founder of a company called Kathalyst, and essentially what we do is we help established companies who have old software, particularly software from like the 1960s and 1970s still running, but they don't have the engineers to support the software long term. We help them convert this old software into newer software and help them modernize their tech so that they can continue functioning as a business and also continue providing benefits to their customers.
So, Anushka, when you say software from the 60s and 70s, possibly even 80s, I would imagine, that needs to be updated into more modern style and codes. So most of us people who are in technology feel that like those things don't exist anymore, right? But there's a reason for your company. So
yeah,
how are there more of these out there than we think there are? Like, are there more companies and more types of companies that are on these old style softwares and legacy software than we give credence or credit to? And if so, like, can you talk about like what some of those industries are that really lean on it?
yes, absolutely. There are, in fact, so we are starting off by targeting one particular kind of software called COBOL, which exists in mainframe computers. And currently, there are over 90% of like your Fortune 500 companies have mainframes running. The entire financial institutions, so banks, mutual funds, insurance companies, the stock exchange, they all have mainframe. The core customer data that they hold is all stored in mainframes. The transaction systems, whether it's Swift, whether it's ACH, whether it's credit card, all of those use mainframe computers. The government heavily relies on mainframe still. Your IRS tax system, your social security system, your benefits, your unemployment benefit systems, all of that at a state and federal level rely on COBOL. 45 out of 50 states in the US still rely on COBOL. So it is massively running globally. Like there are 3 times more COBOL transactions daily than Google searches. So it is a large, like the scale of this problem is huge. But the irony that we face right now is because there's so much of this COBOL still running, and it's all pretty much the backbone of enterprise and government in developed countries. But you don't have the engineers left to support it. Like there are only about estimates say about 2 million COBOL engineers left for like 800 billion COBOL lines of code. So it's it is a stark difference, and many companies are facing a shortage there because they know that their COBOL engineers are like close to retirement, and they've been in the company for like 30, 40 years. They've dedicated their life to these companies, but if they leave, who's going to take over? There's nobody to take over for them. Young people are not learning COBOL. Universities don't teach it anymore. There are hardly, I think, 7 universities in the US that still have some form of courses on COBOL, and many of them are not for credit. So it's not very widely used. The workforce is not being, replaced, and companies are basically struggling to, like, what do we do? They're left between like a rock and a hard place on decisions to make here. But yeah.
I will say this: after hearing those numbers, I think I probably should go and dust off the COBOL that I remember learning back in like 1986 when I was like 9, right? And maybe I better go dust that off, and maybe I better go pull that out of the old back of the head there, because it sounds like there's a real growth opportunity from what you are describing. So I guess my question here is how is it that you have seen this as a problem to be solved, right? Little Anushka, I'm sure when you were a child, didn't wake up and say, hey, I'd like to solve the COBOL problem. That'll be really awesome for me. I'm sure that is not how that happened. So tell us a little bit about your path to founding your company, and why you decided that this was a problem that you needed to solve.
Yeah. Well, it's not so much that I found this problem, but the problem found me. I was working so I graduated undergrad in computer science. I didn't know, well, I had never worked on COBOL by then, but I knew it existed, because we had like a small history of computer science, where we spoke about how things went from assembly to COBOL to Prolog and Fortran and Pascal and all of these old languages all the way up to like Java and Python and C and C++ and everything that we know. So I knew that it was a language that existed. I had no idea on what it looked like. I'd never worked on it. Then I started my first job as a software engineer. And like a year into that job, I was put on a project where I was told that take these old COBOL files and rewrite them in Java. So I had to go out and learn COBOL at that point of time, go and learn the syntax and how it works and everything. And then, translate like pretty much line by line what was happening in the COBOL file into like a Java microservice. So yeah, I was kind of put into that project. I didn't necessarily choose it, but yeah, I was it was a interesting time to be in. There were a lot of challenges with that project, but I saw it as an opportunity to learn. So that's where I just had like a brief introduction that okay, this is something that we need to do. It was only after that when I came to like pursue my master's at Tufts and more of a business knowledge and everything that I looked deep into the problem to find out how big it was. Because at the time we were just doing it internally for the company system. Like the company had these old mainframes running, and they wanted to move away from them. They wanted to move to newer hardware. So that was what we were working on. But it was like after I came out and I was looking deeper into this problem, I figured out just how big it was, how many people relied on it, and the just the magnitude of the opportunity that exists here. Actually. But, yeah.
I would assume that there's more than one way, or there are other companies out there or whatever trying to solve the same problem. I'm kind of going with my gut instinct here, saying that having somebody do what you did in that environment, going line by line, is probably the most common way to solve the COBOL to conversion to modern languages, whether it's Python or Ruby or Java or whatever. So, but that's not the way your company is currently doing it, right? Without giving away the secret sauce, can you talk a little bit about how your company is taking this task and making it a lot easier than what you experienced in that role?
Yes, absolutely. So, first of all, this is not a new problem in any way. Like this, people have been talking about COBOL being a dead language for like 40 years now. People have been tackling this challenge, trying to tackle it at least since like the Y2K and the 2000s. So traditionally, how people have been doing it is they've been hiring consulting firms. So any like big and medium-sized consulting firm, they all have these mainframe modernization projects or COBOL to Java conversion projects. The way that they do it is essentially they'll get a bunch of engineers to work on the problem. They'll probably have somewhat of a combination of two mainframe engineers and COBOL engineers, and maybe like 5 to 6 Java engineers working together, trying to bridge the gap and move from COBOL to Java. There are a lot of challenges there because very often what you have is you have people who are experts in the COBOL field and people who are experts in the Java field, but there's no one person that knows both sides.
Hmm.
So making that translation, it essentially everybody ends up doing what is the most common lift and shift method. Like they'll just line by line copy what's happening in the COBOL in the Java without putting in enough effort to uh, you know how a Java application would be restructured from the ground up. Because Java is a very, very different language from COBOL. Like it's the entire design philosophy of doing a Java application differs from the design philosophy of doing a COBOL application.
Hmm.
And that change is never reflected
Hmm.
when you have teams like this working. So very often what you end up with is what the industry term is called JOBOL. So it's like it's COBOL code written in Java, which is not ideal. So that is like the biggest challenge that companies face. Very often with these consulting projects, first of all, these consulting projects are not scalable. Like an average mainframe size is anywhere between 10,000 and 20,000 COBOL files. So that's not, if you want to do a full mainframe migration, you're talking decades of work, not months and years. In Especially if you do it with consulting firms. The second thing, most of these projects go over budget or extend their timeline. They are never, 6 months, 1 year delays are very, very normal in this space. Um, and on the budget side, we've spoken to companies where like they wanted to do, let's say, a full mainframe migration, and with the budget that they allocated, they could only do 40% of it. And when they looked into why that was happening, like they should have known, right? They going into the project, they knew how big their system was, they knew how complex it was, what was the challenges there. Well, they realized that most of the money, like 50% of their budget, was spent on dead code, like modernizing dead and useless code. And that was just it was sunk cost. It was money that they couldn't get back and use properly. So the way that we are doing it at Catalyst is I'm trying to create a product to do this entire translation, where we kind of try and hit all of the missing pieces that people have been facing with these projects historically. So when we start off, the first thing that we do is we document everything. So you have like a clear idea on what your legacy and COBOL system does and how it works and everything around that, because that is extremely important to know that listen, this is not just an easy transaction system. This is how complex it is. This is the nitty gritties of everything that it does and it takes care of. Second thing that we do for the complexity and analysis, we actually identify the dead code. We identify what parts of the code that are not being run and should not be looked at and should just be removed. The third thing that we do is we use AI and other techniques to automatically convert the code. So because our approach in the actual conversion, we don't have a human in the loop. So the advantage you have there is it's an extremely scalable solution. You can run this on 500 files, you can run this on 10,000 files, and you can get work done in weeks and months, not years. So that's like, our advantage here. And a lot of the approaches that we are using, it differs from other people who are directly just using generative AI on the problem, because generative AI, as many people know, it's probabilistic and it hallucinates
Mhm,
quite a lot.
mhm,
When you're solving a problem like this, if your application or if your output Java code has any kind of hallucination in it, it can be almost impossible to detect.
Yeah.
Like it's you if you're moving from a 10,000 file COBOL code to Java, it's going to be at least like, some 15,000, 20,000 files. You will not be able to pinpoint where the hallucinations are. And
And,
at large, yeah,
and you may have the problem of the hallucination continuing on and hallucinating again. Like,
mhm.
so the hallucination ends up becoming a bigger problem than if you caught it like right up front. So yeah.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
Imagine like your credit card APR rate. Like in COBOL, maybe it's set at like 24.46. But let's say, or 24.4631, something like that. But on the Java side, let's say the application ends up rounding up that particular percentage, it becomes 24.5. That is a huge difference.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
that can cause genuine problems in the calculations. That can, it's extremely, extremely risky. It's extremely, it's hard to detect when such things happen, and
Well,
very often, yeah.
well, that answers the question that I was going to ask you, which is, where does generative AI fit into this stack of your solution that you're offering? And of course, I'm thinking like I guess like one of those organizations that built their mainframes back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Um, because my brain immediately went to, well, we'll just use AI to solve this because AI will do the conversion, and then it'll be everything will snap our fingers and magically hunky dorily will wind up in the future, and it'll be fine.
Yes,
And I don't need Anushka's solution, but the hallucinations piece, as well as the replication piece, the replication problem with generative AI,
yeah.
are which are not the topic of this podcast today, but
I know.
those are massive problems in the stack that it's good to hear that your solution takes into account. Um, okay, so how does an organization sort of use your again, without going into anything proprietary, how do they what's their first steps in getting a hold of you, right? Or not even getting a hold of you, but getting in touch with you and getting their arms around your service, around your product? Like what do they have to do in order to start solving this problem and in order to work with you, Anushka?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, the first thing that they can do is they can go to our website and book a call with us directly. Our calendars are pretty open there, so you
Mm-hmm.
can schedule a call with us. But once you do that, and once it takes a little bit of initial setup, because um, so our solution, and actually any solution, doesn't directly integrate with mainframes, because well, the companies won't let it. It's a security issue. They don't want, it's extremely sensitive data. They don't want external systems getting access to it. So the first thing that we'd have to set up is a method to get the COBOL source code out of your mainframe systems, which is not a very hard process. But if a company hasn't done it before, that's a one step that you need to take. And once you set up that, then our solution, it can either run on cloud or it can run on prem, and we can basically create an FTP,
Mm-hmm.
protocol to get all of your source code files. Then it's like a 3-button click to get your output. And once you get your output, then we have another set of guidelines and instructions to help you host your output, whether it's on some cloud service or it's a private cloud that you have. and we can help you deploy our application there. After that, right now, at least there's a little bit more hands-on effort because we're a startup where
Mhm.
once you deploy an application, then we have to kind of help you maintain it and cross-check whether the modern application and the legacy, the COBOL application are working in the same way. So like you're not getting any, just making sure that you certain edge cases are not missed. You know, the output data that you're getting does not differ from one another. Um, at least right now, that's more of a hands-on effort. But going forward, that is going to be automated for a large bit of it. But yeah, it's not a
Awesome.
very hard product to use.
Mhm.
But yeah, it just takes a little bit of effort from the initial side to set things up, and then once you've set it up, then you can, you're on and
Awesome.
you can run.
So Anushka, as we change directions here just a little bit, I want you to talk a little bit about your experience with GrowthCraft as a member. Can you give our listeners a little insight as to kind of what attracted you to GrowthCraft in the first place? Why do you stay? What's the most valuable thing that you gain out of it? Something along those lines. You don't have to answer all three of those, but somewhere around there.
Yeah,
Like, can you talk a little bit about your experience with GrowthCraft?
yeah, absolutely. So when I joined GrowthCraft and when I found out about GrowthCraft, it was actually through a friend, but who's also in GrowthCraft, is also a member. But I was in a unique situation at the time because I had, well, a couple of months ago, I had gone from having a founding team and having co-founders to becoming a solo founder. And then I had just come out of, like, I had an intern for the last couple of months as well working. So, I had somebody to work with and as a soundboard, and, we would throw ideas at each other. To then the intern having to go back to, like, college to continue her semester. And I was back at, working at it alone, trying to find a team. But also, I'm somebody who, um, well, I'm not as disciplined as I probably should be. So I very often need other people to set certain deadlines and, keep me in track. So that was like the first and the most initial motivation that I had to come into GrowthCraft, was to not only have like a community behind and, like, people to help when you have a problem, but also people to hold me accountable. Like especially in our mastermind groups, every 2 weeks I have to show up and I have to, talk about my progress, whether I completed the things that I promised that I would. And that keeps me in check. It's also, every 2 weeks I get to meet uh, some great founders and, some great advisors and catch up with them. Anything that's on my mind that I would like a second opinion on, I very often get a great, small enough group uh, to help and give advice on. So that was like my motivation and the initial reason that I joined. I will say though, I've been a member for, well, almost a year. We're like a couple of months away from a year now, and I have found even like the advisors and the external, like all of the other advisors outside of my mastermind group, extremely helpful. I have gone back, like, I don't know if I should name names, but I've gone back to Kevin a couple of times to help, on the mindset side. I've gone back to Vitali a couple of times for banking and funding side. I've spoken to, I've spoken to Tom quite a bit on sales and marketing because, that is one of our, that's something I have to still learn. So that's
Mhm.
a challenge that I face. But many, GrowthCraft founders have helped. They've helped make connections. They've helped make, help me on the tech side sometimes as well, on the product side. So it's been great that way.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Um, all right. Well, as we wrap up, as we close today, why don't you let folks know where they can get a hold of you, and let us know what you would like to promote today, if anything. Yeah, and let us, of course, know where folks can get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you can find me in a couple of different ways. You can find the company at our website, which is Kathalyst.ai. So KATHALYST.ai. You can find us on LinkedIn. Again, the company name is just Kathalyst. You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Anushka Singh. If you just write Anushka Singh COBOL, I'm pretty sure I will show up as probably the only people there. Um, but yeah, that's a lot of ways to get a hold of me. Um, on our website, there's also a button to get in touch with us where you can automatically schedule a meeting with me. My email and the company email is basically hello@catalyst.ai. So if you ever need just to email hello, I will be the one at the end of that inbox answering you. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, we like to thank Anushka Singh for coming on the GrowthCraft Startup Community Podcast today. And with that, well, we're out.
So long, everyone.